أهلا رقية الآتو KBSV TV. This is AssyriaSat, KBSV TV, Channel 15.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Politics. I'm your host, Yonan, and tonight we have a special show for you. We have one of the winners from the primary elections in June, on June 5th. You are familiar with Josh Harder, and we're very excited to have him back. Welcome back, Josh.
Thanks for having me.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
That must have been really exciting.
It's good. It's not the end of the road.
Right.
We came one election in. We got through the primary. It ended up being pretty competitive. And now we got the real one. We got 5 months to prepare for the real election in November this year. And I think we're, based on the results from last Tuesday, really excited about all the work to come.
That's great. You did a good job. Honestly, that was hard work, I know, in this heat, in this weather, but you did it. So, talking about the elections that took place June 5th, you know, some of the statistics looked pretty terrible. For example, out of 236,374 registered voters in the Stanislaus County, or District 10, there were a total of 75,731 people that actually voted. Now, the majority voted by mail. So that looks like a trend.
Yeah.
Now, is this dismal numbers or what's going on? What do you think?
I think everybody should vote. But the reality is even though those numbers seem low, and they are, a little over a third of people, we think probably around 37% of folks ended up voting, those numbers are actually high in this district compared to their historical averages. So in 2014, the last midterm we had, voter turnout was almost 22%. So it actually rose by 50% 4 years later, which actually is really good news. So the story of this election is one where more people are participating in politics than ever before.
That's great.
We ended up having, including folks that dropped off the ballot and ended up not filing, just for this congressional district, we ended up having 14 candidates, 14 people who had declared to run, and a lot of those ended up on the ballot, which I think is a good sign. It shows that so many people are excited and energized by the opportunities that we have to push forward. And we saw those results in this district on Tuesday. We saw Democratic turnout skyrocket.
Really?
Democratic turnout was up 12 points. Democratic vote share was up 12 points just compared to 2 years ago. And I think that's what we need to continue to capitalize on all the way to November.
You know, I would have never known that until you said that, because to be honest, I was looking at the overall numbers. I thought 75,000 only voted. That's terrible, you know, but I'm glad to look at it from that perspective, that people were excited this time around, and we had 50% more voters.
Yeah.
That's great. So, so the last time you came on the show, you were saying that this district is approximately 50-50, 50% Republican, 50% Democrat. And you turned out to be right based on the statistics. I never realized that, actually. So looking at the governor's race, the lieutenant governor's race, secretary of state, the controller, the treasurer, the attorney general, the insurance commissioner, member state board of equalization, U.S. House of Representatives, District 10, it was 50-50. The only one that wasn't was the Democrat, the U.S. Senator race, which was Dianne Feinstein was the actual winner. Now, I don't understand, does the person that even received 10,000 less votes than she did, would they still be eligible to go to the November
They
ballot?
are, yeah. For all of the federal races, all the people that we're trying to send to Washington, even if one person gets almost all the votes, it's still the top two vote getters. So it'll be Dianne Feinstein against Kevin De Leon in November, which is not true for some of the local races, but for the federal races, it is the top two vote getters, even if one person gets more than 50%.
So Dianne
you'll have a chance
Feinstein
to vote for either one of them.
has a lot of work to do. Okay, so I'm shocked that you defeated all of them. All these 13 candidates.
You're shocked.
I am. I wanted you to do that. I wanted you, but I was afraid that the Democratic vote would be so split among so many people that we won't get a chance to even get on, first base.
Yeah.
Now, the rest of the Democratic vote was split between the other candidates, and the reason I was shocked, not because you're not a good candidate, obviously I voted for you. I'm not supposed to say that.
Well, thank you. That's a
But
big
I did.
revelation. Well, that's encouraging to hear. Thank you.
But
Glad
I
we
was
worked
shocked because Michael Eggman, who has name recognition, who nearly defeated Jeff Denham by 3 points last time, came in practically dead last. That was a shocker. So you defeated a major candidate that's used to running, and I think he ran at least 3 times, right?
Yeah, there were other good candidates in this race. I think everyone was in it for the right reasons. Everyone wanted to bring change to our district. They wanted to fight, and honestly, on most of the issues, most of the Democrats agreed.
Yeah.
We all were fighting for universal health care. We were all fighting for more jobs in the valley. There's a lot of consistency on the Democratic side. And now I'm thrilled to say that a week and a half after that election, every Democrat has now endorsed our campaign.
That's
who
great.
ran. They've encouraged their supporters to come out. We're having a large unity event this Wednesday, next Wednesday.
Where
and
at?
So at our offices on 1900 Standiford, anyone's
Oh,
welcome
my
to come.
goodness, that's exciting.
It is, and I think there's a lot of real excitement from the activist community to go after what we all think is a bigger goal,
Right,
which is to make sure we beat Jeff Denham.
right. We don't want to do the personality cult.
We don't want to do the personality cult, and I don't think there's a lot of risk for that, because I think everyone understands that this is bigger than just one person.
Yeah, there's a lot at stake.
Yeah.
And talking about a lot at stake, another shocker was that Jeff Denham only received how much? 30?
Less than 38% of the vote.
Yeah, that was a shocker.
Yeah.
So,
It was the lowest number of votes he's ever gotten in history since he was first elected in this district, and it makes him the second least popular member of Congress in all of California. And I think it's useful to think about why that happened, right? Why? What is going on here, right?
Right.
Besides some of these electoral results, besides the facts and figures, what are the stories behind that?
Right.
And I think it is because in a district like ours, where nearly 50% of us are on Medi-Cal, where we have a member of Congress that voted to take away health insurance from 100,000 people, that impacts real lives. And then we see that on the jobs as well. We see a member of Congress who voted to raise taxes on this just to give away some large giveaways to large corporations. That doesn't help us. And what we saw on Tuesday was broad, bipartisan dissatisfaction
Yes.
with Jeff Denham's record.
yes.
We saw that coming from Republicans. A
Yeah.
third of Republicans didn't vote for their Republican member of Congress.
Yeah.
63% of this district voted for somebody else.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I did invite Jeff Denham because this is an equal opportunity program. And I asked him about that. I said there was a backlash when you voted against the health, to repeal and replace it with nothing, basically. And he denied the backlash. But I knew there's got to be, the results will be proven no matter how much we are in denial. And that was a shocker to me, that it actually came true, that the people were upset with him for doing that. And I think that he learned a good lesson as a member of Congress, because when he went back, he started working on the immigration bill to see if he could work with the Democrats to propose some sort of a vote. I don't know if they'll allow him because they're kind of stubborn Not only did the GOP stand against Obama and nearly everything he wanted to accomplish, including DACA, and Mitch McConnell pretty much said, our objective and our goal is to make sure that he does not succeed. But this time around, there's no more excuses. Obama's gone. He knows that he's got to do something for his constituency because 20% of the industry in Stanislaus County, or District 10, is agriculture. And those people depend on that immigration. And because they honestly tell us no white people want to come and pick the crops. These are white farmers.
Well, Annie, I agree with you on almost a lot of the stuff you said, but I got to disagree with you that I don't think Jeff Denham did learn his lesson. Because he went back, and yes, he's released a lot of press releases. He's talked a lot about the importance of immigration reform. Because you'd have to be blind, as you said, to not see the impact of immigration in a district that so depends on agriculture. But what Jeff Denham has done is he has made a whole lot of noise around this. And then yesterday, his party told him to drop it. And he did.
Yeah.
And now it's clear, as of yesterday, that there will be no movement on immigration reform. They're going to do a sham bill that Trump indicates he's not even going to sign. Most members of Congress won't even push it forward because it actually significantly cuts legal immigration, let alone other sorts of immigration. It makes sure that the legal immigrants that are coming aren't actually allowed. We're gonna close off the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
That's not American values.
Right.
And Jeff Denham has not, despite what he says in the district, he has not stood up to his party.
Right.
This is somebody who votes with his party and with Donald Trump 98% of the time.
Right.
So I don't think that's a bipartisan record of somebody who is in a district that is bipartisan,
Right.
where we have a lot of Republicans and we have a lot of Democrats. We
Yeah.
need somebody who's going to fight for us.
But it's ironic that you, as a newcomer, even though you're a Valley boy, and I told you earlier when we were talking outside, and I said, this is a real story, what you got going. It's like local boy makes good. The little kid that was born and raised in Stanislaus County.
After throwing papers for the Turlock Journal?
Yeah, that got all the support from his community to go to best colleges in the world, got the best education. He's coming back now to give back to his community, that what is needed here and what we need as constituents more than somebody who's served already 4 terms and wants a 5th term. That is another shock.
Well, I think Jeff Denham's out of touch. I think he cares more about what's happening in Washington, more about his party than what we need here in the district. And you're right. This valley invested in me. Everything I have is because this community cared about me and made sure that I had a route to success. And I'm running for Congress because I don't think that route to success is allowed to everyone in this community. We have a district where 80% of kids in our school districts are on free and reduced lunch, or where we have an unemployment rate that is unacceptably high, that is twice the national average.
Nearly 11%.
Well, it's gone down a little bit since then, but it's still way too high. And we can be doing better, and we will do better if we have political leaders that are not beholden to one party or another, that are not beholden. 70% of the campaign contributions Jeff Denham gets comes from either a corporate PAC or his special interests.
Right.
Right? I have said I'm not going to accept a single dollar of corporate PAC donations because I want to make sure that people know that I'm fighting for them. And on every issue, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to focus on issues that are broadly supported by people in this district. Everyone here wants health care insurance. Everyone here wants more jobs in the Valley. We need immigration reform.
Right.
Those are the 3 main planks of our campaign. They've been the 3 main planks since the day we started a year and a half ago. They're going to continue to be the planks all the way to November. And that's why we saw Jeff Denham have 63% of this district vote against him last Tuesday.
Yeah. That was a shocker. I expected that. I don't know if he did, but I sort of brought it up during my interview with him. But honestly, I mean, he got, somebody like Ted Howes, first time running as a Republican, unknown, and a vet, that nobody has heard of except his own clients, almost got enough votes as Jeff Dunham.
Yeah.
That was a shocker. So this is a big deal. The people are not satisfied, and when they went to the polls, they knew that this is what they
We
wanted
saw
to
it.
say.
Yeah, you can't deny it any longer.
Right.
And the most important thing is that the surge that we saw, the surge in voter turnout, was higher here than any other place in all of California last Tuesday.
Amazing.
And it happened because these issues, they're not just statistics.
Right.
They're impacting lives.
That's right.
I mean, when we talk about immigrants, right? We're talking on Assyrian TV.
Yeah.
This is a community based on immigration,
immigrants.
right? And refugees from all different lands.
That's right.
And we need to make sure that we're making that known. And we saw on Tuesday a resounding rejection
Yeah.
of a member of Congress that hasn't done anything to fight for us.
Right, right. Yeah, and, so let's talk about Josh Harder. What's next for you? Take us through the steps
Yeah.
of what's involved now. Now that you've won the nomination and you're going on to the November election.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I did is I took a nap. That was really important. It was long needed, and I look forward to taking another nap in another 5 months, which will probably be the next time we're
Yes.
allowed to do it. But look, we did this. We were able to do this not because of anything I was able to do, because of all the folks that came together as part of this campaign.
Yeah.
We ended up having hundreds and hundreds of volunteers that knocked on tens of thousands of doors all across this district. The recipe for November is the exact same issues, the exact same campaign, just 10 times bigger and 10 times
Yeah.
better. And it's really not rocket science. I mean, you and I know that retail politics matters.
Yeah.
That half of politics, maybe even 90% of politics, is just showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have not had in
Yeah.
this district.
Right.
We have a member of Congress that hasn't had a town hall in over a year. He is ashamed, by all remarks, to actually show up in front of his constituents, to actually take the hard-hitting questions.
Actually, I went to one of the last ones. He didn't show up. It was his handlers that came and talked to the people, and those people were quite irate. And these are traditional Republicans that showed up
Right.
to ask questions, and he wasn't around. So some of his handlers were trying to reassure that we're not going to touch immigration. We're not going to do what's happening in Washington. But like you said, and then now we've got nothing. Yeah. So.
The way we're going
And some people might feel like, oh, she's a liberal, that's why she's saying that. No, it has nothing to do with party politics. We're talking about a district. We live in this district, whether we like it or not. We've got issues to deal with.
Yeah.
This is, like you said, real life. It's impacting all of us. Whether we're retired, whether we're working, whether we're just looking for a job, whether we want good education, whether we want health care for our families, this is real life stuff. And even if there was a Democrat, even if Jeff Dunham was a Democrat, I would still be criticizing him for not doing what he said he would and what he promised.
Yeah. And Annie, I think you could not have said it better, that the issues in this district are broadly supported. Everybody has the same fundamental needs,
Yes.
the same fundamental values.
That's right.
The reason that we're not being advanced, that those values are not being advanced, is because we have someone who's more interested in fighting for a party than fighting
Yeah.
for us.
Right.
That's the main story here.
Right.
Right? It's that the Central Valley does have needs, but it's not partisan needs.
Right.
Right? They're not liberal. They're not conservative.
Right.
We have needs for actual health care reform. We have needs for education.
Right.
We have needs for immigration reform, and we can't actually do anything about that. We got somebody in Washington, D.C. who's too ashamed to actually show his face in the district.
Right.
And I think we've proven, our campaign has been able to prove over the last 18 months, and we're going to prove the next 5 months that we show up,
Yeah.
that we work hard, and that we make
You
sure
better.
that we're listening, that we're going to work harder.
I'm gonna hold you
Working
to it.
harder for you. That's like my
Good.
last name.
Good.
Easy to remember.
That's right. Good. I'm glad to hear that, because honestly, I'm so sick of this partisan politics. I mean, I think on both sides. People on the Republican side and the Democratic side, they're like, what are you guys doing for us? You're just bickering amongst each other. You're blocking him, he's blocking you. Where are we getting with this? This
We
is
need
ridiculous.
leaders that focus on solutions,
Right.
not on cheap partisan politics
Right.
and bickering and putting out press releases
Right.
that do nothing.
Right.
And we've had 8 years of that. We've had 8 years of that.
I know.
And it's time
Yeah.
for a change.
Yeah, it is. Big time. So walk us through the steps of what a nominee, and in your case, a Democratic nominee, must go through to prepare for November now.
Yeah. Well, our number one focus is making sure that we're out there communicating and talking to everyone. We've done dozens and I think even over 100 house parties and town halls across the district already.
That's great.
We're going to continue to do that. We're going everywhere. Tracy, Bentica, Newman, Patterson, Ceres, Modesto, Turlock, everywhere.
Good.
And we're continuing to build that out. Because at the end of the day, we got to make sure that people know the facts of
Right.
this race. The people know what we're standing for. They can agree with me, they can disagree with me, but I actually think once they know what we're fighting for and they know
Mhm.
Jeff Denham's record,
Mm-hmm.
we've got a really strong case to make. And the
Mhm.
challenge is most people don't necessarily know that. They've got a lot of busyness going on in their lives.
Sure.
So we're building a campaign that actually communicates with everyone.
That's great.
As part of that, we need help. 90% of our campaign volunteers have never worked on a campaign
Wow.
ever before.
That's
Which is
amazing.
really exciting.
Yeah.
There's a silver lining of this entire era of politics, which is people getting involved for the first time. That's got to continue. And we're going to be building that out, and I'm looking forward to making sure that we build a locally focused grassroots campaign that talks about the issues that people actually care about.
Yeah, yeah. And we're all in the same boat, no matter how divided they try to make us, no matter how they try to polarize us, we are all in the same
We're all
boat
Americans.
because we live here, we're gonna have to live together.
Right.
And we need all the same basic human
Right.
stuff that are called needs. So what's now? I mean, will the DNC now get behind you? Have you heard from them? Have they reached out to you and welcome you to the fold?
Yeah, absolutely. This is, I think, a real focus district from the Democratic Party, and we're thrilled to have their support. But at the end of the day, the support that matters most is the support of
the
people
local.
around here. And that's why the endorsements that we're most proud of are the fact that we were endorsed by the Modesto Beat,
Yeah.
which has historically always supported Jeff Denham. They started his career
Yes.
20 plus years ago. The fact that folks that are really paying attention in this district, local folks are paying attention, and they're seeing that Jeff Denham's record does not represent this district, and that instead they're supporting us, I think is a really exciting signal.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to continue to build on.
Good, that's great. Yeah, that was a big deal when Modesto B endorsed you. Yeah, that was a good sign. So now the Democrats in our district, those that voted for other people, and we had 13 candidates, let's face it. That's one of the reasons why the Democratic vote was so split. And even though it was that, you still came ahead. How do they get involved? They want to know how do they rally behind you now?
Yeah.
How to reach out to you?
Yeah. So, and we've been thrilled to get the endorsement of every person who ran on Tuesday, every Democrat who ran. They've quickly thrown their support. We didn't run a single negative ad. There's not a lot of bad blood.
I wanted to congratulate you on running a
Thank you.
clean campaign. Not one negative word, nothing against the other candidates either. I mean, from both parties. That was really nice to see because one particular campaign got very ugly in the valley when, it was like the sheriff campaign. That kind of got out of control. But I was very proud to see that you stuck to your guns, stuck to your values, and just focused on what you need to do for the people of Stanislaus County. So where you said you're going to set up your headquarters, you already set them up?
Yep, we've got a campaign headquarters
Okay.
right now. It's right by the Standiford Mall. Anybody's welcome to show up anytime.
1900.
1900 Standiford. Absolutely. Got a big space, plenty of places to go phone banking and make sure we're getting out the vote. And what our goal is for the next 5 months is build that campaign infrastructure, that campaign organization that can make sure that every human being in this district knows what we're fighting for. And if we're able to do that, we'll be in a good spot.
So, what do we need and I don't wanna harp on the same person, but that's the person that we have for the last 4 terms.
There's only 2 people running.
Yeah,
There's-
just you and Denham.
It's pretty simple.
So I want you to kind of like highlight the difference between the two of you in black and white. Because some people get confused, especially the elderly. They get confused. And I know that they're not, you know, with all that's going on, with this political divisiveness and polarity and all that, kind of let's go through step by step for people that you are definitely going to reform immigration.
So, and I think I like to run campaign. The campaign that we've run has been very focused on the issues, and that's why I don't want to imagine what Jeff Denham would do in some other
Right.
world. I want to focus on what his actual track record is.
Right.
And on the 3 issues that I believe matter most, I think he's voted against this district's interest over the last 18 months. On health care, Jeff Denham voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act 63 times. Most recently, about a year ago, he voted for a bill that would have left 100,000 people without insurance in
Yep.
this district.
Yep.
My younger brother David was one of those people who would be without insurance till he's 65 and on Medicare. He's a student over at Stan State, but because of his pre-existing condition,
Right.
when Jeff Denham voted to remove the protections for
Right.
pre-existing conditions, my brother would be without insurance.
Right.
And that's my main motivation of running,
Right.
and that I think is deeply motivating to so many people. Jeff Denham voted to take away our health care. That
Right.
is really a big deal.
Right.
The second is immigration reform. We have seen time and time again that there's a lot of hot air on immigration
Right.
in this district because immigration is unbelievably important.
That's right.
And we have a member of Congress that likes to talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
but every time push comes to shove. In 2010, when his party told him they didn't want to do immigration reform, he nodded his head and said okay. In 2014, when they told him they didn't want to do anything, he nodded his head and said okay. And yesterday, we saw the exact same thing. Just this week, we saw what Paul Ryan and Kevin McCarthy told him to drop it, he did, despite an awful lot of press releases and hot air to the contrary.
Right.
If we don't have a member of Congress who's going to stand up for us, to his leadership, then what's he doing there?
That's right.
And that's what immigration. I'm going to fight to make sure that every immigrant in this district has an actual chance to fight for that American dream, and that is what we are fighting for.
Right. Especially because they're already here. We cannot
That's us,
continue
yeah.
separating children from parents, holding them hostages, and
that
doing all
heartbreaking,
this
some of the-
nonsense. I mean, even Trump is ashamed of what's going on.
Right.
But that's why he's not actually, dealing with it.
Right.
He's blaming the Democrats for something that his policies are doing, and that is snatching children away from families. We're talking about infants, toddlers, school-age kids in cages. I think that's not America, and that never will
Pictures
be
and
America.
the videos are horrifying.
Yeah.
It's horrifying. And the way that we are able, I can't imagine, that's not the America that I want
No.
to live in, is an America that separates kids from their parents.
Right.
That puts kids in cages.
Right.
That is not right. And the way that we got to make sure we change that, because
Yeah.
clearly our political leaders today aren't doing anything about it, is we got to show our discomfort, we got to show our distaste, we got to show our disgust at the
Right.
ballot box.
Right.
And that is what we got to do.
I think the Republican Senator Corker said it best. I think the reason why nothing is happening is because we have a cult personality issue here, and the only reason why he can say it because he's retiring. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not running again, so he has nothing to lose.
Yeah, well, Jeff Denham says a lot of things
Yeah.
too, and then he doesn't back them up. He
Right.
just kind of does whatever his party tells him, and that's the tragedy.
It is a tragedy. Yeah, we need a change. What's the third one?
Yeah, so healthcare, immigration, and jobs. Number one big issue in this district. Jobs and education go hand in hand. And we have a member of Congress that has voted for a tax bill that raised taxes on most people in California
know.
who took the state and local tax deduction. And why did he do it? What help did that give? Well, it ended up giving a lot of money to corporate interests,
Yeah.
which funds 70% of his campaign. Most of those, almost all of those, aren't based in districts like ours that actually have needs.
Yeah.
And my challenge is, what if we taken that money,
Right.
and instead of giving it away to corporations that weren't actually going to do anything with it, that
Right.
just ended up, putting it on their bottom line. If we actually invested that in
Right.
communities that have needs, right? If
Exactly.
we actually focused on the apprenticeship programs in this district, where we are taking kids at risk of dropping out, teaching them how to install solar panels, how to work with their hands, how to get jobs, and those kids graduate, they get a job at $20 an hour the day after graduation.
right.
Those programs are a success,
Right.
and yet they're being underfunded.
Right.
And some of the federally funded ones are getting zeroed out in the same budget.
Yeah.
That is what I want to focus on,
Right.
to make sure that the Central Valley is thriving and successful. And we're
Right.
only going to be able to do that if we have members of Congress that are fighting for the Central Valley instead of fighting for their party.
That's right. Well, I want to bring up something that is not related to your campaign, but just in the fairness of bipartisan politics, I don't want people to think that we're just talking about liberal stuff. This is human life we're talking about. But in the same thing, I'm very happy that President Trump opened the way for talks in North Korea. How do you feel about that? Because some Democrats are not thrilled with him, treating the dictator in such a way. But I think that it's positive, and I think we should encourage it, because I feel bad for those people that we have starved for all those years, 70 years of sanctions, thousands of Americans killed in Korea, dividing Korea into two countries. I feel sorry for them. I feel very bad for them. And as a result, we now have dictators running Korea. Well, how do we eliminate dictators? By opening the channels to them, by including them. And inclusivity is very important. Do you agree with me, or do you have your own reservations about this?
I hope it's successful. I really do. I believe the only way that we can denuclearize the North Korean peninsula is through diplomacy.
That's
I
right.
don't think a military solution, I think it's awful. It would result in
Yeah.
millions of casualties.
Millions.
And it would be devastating.
Yes.
And we need a diplomatic solution.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate Donald Trump moving forward on this, and I
Yes.
really hope he is successful. I don't think Donald Trump strikes me as a particularly adept diplomat,
Uh-huh.
and I think the results so far have been disappointing.
Yeah.
North Korea has duped the world again and again and again. They have made promises. They have a history of making promises
Well, they
and then
have-
breaking them.
Yeah, they've broken 85 treaties. with
I
us.
know.
Or more. 85 or more.
And that means we need to make sure that we have diplomats that are a little more qualified than Donald
Right.
Trump, that understand the dynamics a little
Right.
bit better, and that can make sure that when they make those promises, that we're validating and verifying them on the other end. And I think what we've seen just over the last week is a lot of pictures, a lot of press releases, a lot of hot air, and the results of that, I think, have been really disappointing. I hope it is successful, and
Me too.
I really hope it is, but it can't just be a front.
No.
We need to make sure that there's meat
Yeah.
behind it,
Right.
and we only have meat if we actually are pushing forward our diplomatic efforts there. We don't even have an ambassador to South Korea,
Right.
Because Donald Trump hasn't appointed one.
Right.
Donald Trump hasn't appointed leaders in that part of the world from our State Department that can actually lead this diplomatic effort.
So
that
do
makes
you
me very
propose
skeptical.
that he does?
I think he absolutely should. I think we need to make sure that we have qualified high-level diplomats there that can do the real meat behind the scenes to make sure that there's not just a press release and a signing ceremony,
Right.
but there's actually something that moves forward on it. That's the way to get real change and not just a handshake.
Right, right. So you're focusing on education, healthcare, jobs, immigration. How do you organize a district like this? How will you be able to bring everyone together from rural areas to the city metropolitan areas? How do you do that?
The issues are universal. Everybody wants healthcare. Everybody wants immigration reform. Everybody wants a job, and that's what we're so we're focusing really on the fundamentals. We've organized by city. In every city, there is a volunteer strike team that we have assembled, whose job it is to mobilize and get the vote out.
Excellent.
And I'm proud to say that we've knocked on doors that have never been knocked on by a Democrat.
That's great.
In the far-flung reaches of Stanislaus and San Joaquin County, and we're going to continue to do that. And it's going to just get bigger and better over the next 5 months. because that's what it's going to take in order to make sure voters have access to the information that they need.
Excellent. So, you know, a lot of people are kind of like, I don't know, you know, they're disenchanted. They don't want to vote. They're like, oh, what are who cares? What did they do for me in the past? What are they going to do in the future? How do you get people that are disenfranchised, disenchanted, come back into the fold?
We have a very exciting opportunity in this district because this is a battleground seat. This is a district where, win or lose, the election in November is going to be decided by hundreds or thousands of votes. Very, very narrow margin. We saw that in 2016. We're going to see that again this year. And it's going to come down to whether or not people vote. Whether or not people vote, I believe, comes down to whether or not they understand the stakes of the election. The stakes of the election in this district are quite high.
Very high.
Let's just take healthcare, which we've been talking about. That bill that Jeff Denham voted for, it passed by 2 votes, which means we got one of those, Democrats got one of those votes in Pennsylvania back, which means we're down to 1 vote. So if all we do in 2018, if nothing else happens across the country, but if we win this district, that vote would not have happened. That bill to take away health insurance from 24 million Americans would not have happened. That, to me, is a real impact, right? That is a national impact, and we are in a position of deep responsibility in this district, because there are districts in America where your member of Congress is going to get reelected, very, very likely on one end or another. That's not this district. This is a battleground seat. This deserves time, attention, and it deserves folks really making sure that they're getting their voice out one way or another.
Yeah, the stakes couldn't be higher. You know, you say that it's because of how many people depend on expanded Medicare.
Yeah.
But it's not just that anymore.
Yes.
Because to be honest, Trump is cutting a lot of the Medicare programs. For example, friends of mine work with the Catholic Charities and the Legacy program, where they offer in-home support for elderly. He stopped the funding for that. As of June 30th, they can no longer do any of that work for the elderly in our community. And there are a lot of other things coming that we haven't even discussed. I don't want to frighten people as of right now because, you know, but this is, when I heard this, I was really depressed. And they're like, well, we can't even offer the homemaker program much longer either. That's another program that they offer in the Valley for the elderly. That's going to be gone too, God forbid, but that's what it looks like. So the funding is so important. And the other thing is the checks and balance. For the first time in our history, we have a party of a president. It is no longer a traditional party of the people. And no matter what happens, they stick together, they vote his way or it's the highway. And that's very dangerous in our society. We're living in dangerous times. No matter what, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you should not be enjoying this time, and you should be very aware that we're heading into dangerous times because the United States was founded on checks and balances, and right now we don't see that. So the stakes are higher than ever before, and it's not Democrat against Republican anymore. It's Americans against survival. And that's how I look at it.
I hear you, and I think we need real accountability.
Yeah.
Right now, I think if you look at somebody like Devin Nunes, there's a lot of lapdogs. There are a lot of people who should be putting that accountability forward, who should be making sure that there are checks and balances, which is what our founding fathers intended.
Exactly.
And we're not seeing that today.
No.
And the way that we make that happen is by winning some elections. If we're actually able to take back the House in 2018, if we're able to flip the House, you're going to see a very different environment. You're going to see an environment where Republicans and Democrats are forced to work together, where there is real accountability.
Right.
Instead of leading from the far direction of one party or another, we need to get back to that middle ground. And it starts here. It starts right here.
right here at home.
At home. At home.
Because the home is where the heart is. And our hearts are with this district. You see, we could live anywhere in the world.
Yes.
But there's a reason why we're here.
Yeah.
There's a reason, and that's because traditionally this area has never played dirty politics. It has cared about one another as a community, and we need to get back to that again. We can't just have all the wealthy people getting advanced while the rest of us are left behind. So I think there's a lot of balance that we need, again, to go back to. You know, like in the Gary Condit times, this was a wonderful place to live, you know? Because he wasn't a Democrat or a Republican, he was a centrist. He worried about the community. He was a Democrat.
But he fought for his district.
But he fought for his district,
community.
no matter who they were, even if they didn't vote for him. And I'd like to see a politician get back to those days again. So, what do you think of the proposal to split California 3 ways?
I think it's a terrible idea. I think California is stronger together. We're a state with the 5th largest economy in the country. I think these ideas and California secession, I think, falls under the same category, splitting into California into 3 states or 6 states or whatever. We are a deeply integrated economy, and we want to make sure that our interests are heard. And if we're splitting ourselves up, it's not something that's going to make us better off. And I think it's going to really hurt our economy. And I think that's why voters are likely going to reject it in November.
I hope so, because it has made it on the ballot in November. But it's backed by people who are very selfish. They want to form a zone, you know, that's to the far right by splitting the rest of the state. And it's only going to hurt everyone, even those people that they're thinking that they're going to build a zone for themselves, separate and apart from us. And I think it's a very dangerous thing to do. I hope people reject it in November. Anything else you'd like to add and say that I haven't asked you about?
I think this has been great. I would just reiterate that we need to make sure that this is a community effort. If folks have ideas for us, I spend a lot of time listening to folks. You can always go to our website, harderforcongress.com, as in working harder, easy to remember. Email me, info@harderforcongress.com. Our phone number is right there. Or you can just show up to our office. We want to make sure that we are transparent and open to everyone. And if folks want to get involved in the campaign, we would love to have them. We could use the help.
Great. So you're on Facebook also. People can
Facebook,
always get in touch
Twitter.
with your campaign through
without a doubt.
Facebook. And you said you promised to remain accessible to the viewers.
Absolutely.
Anytime we want to ask you back, or you are interested in coming back.
We'll be here.
Okay, good.
Yeah, every
All
day.
right. Sounds good.
All right.
Well, thanks very much for being with us, and I really appreciate your generous time. It's not easy to run a campaign and do this, but you've been wonderful.
important.
Thank you so much, and I wish
Thank
you
you,
lots of
Annie.
luck.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
And thanks for being with us, everyone. Hope to see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Good night.